of this lunch and learn. Thanks for the thumbs up, Ray. I really like that. Gives me some immediate feedback. So very good. All right. So again, today it's kind of like, how do we meet the needs of everyone here and get a feel for, what are things going to look like for us come, what is the first game day, Krista? Is it May
11th is Super Soccer Saturday. First game day is May 13th.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll kind of dive into some of the basics, structure of the game of soccer, some fundamental ideas and things we weren't able to get into when we were on Saturday. And if you guys like what we're talking about, thumbs up, great. If you feel like, we can move on, I'm totally cool with that as well. Then from there, we'll kind of get into who we're coaching and what it looks like to coach different age groups, so you can kind of have a better leg up on it. And then we'll share some of our resources and see what we can do. If at the end, Krista, did you see that there was a bigger version, group of people that had some questions, for example, pre-K coaches, we can keep them on afterwards. You know
Sure.
what I'm saying? And then I know, Krista, you talked about wanting to start this off with kind of a very simple theme, which I think was something along the lines of, things are going to be great and you're going to have fun. Can you kind of can jump into that a bit?
Yeah, I think the biggest message I have, Jonathan gets into more the technical side of things, which is great, but is just you'll be okay with just bringing who you are to the field, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to ask for parents' help that are there on the sidelines if you just need some more, help kind of wrangling the kids together. But this is completely 100% just bring the smiles, bring the excitement. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're not mistakes. It's just all part of being a coach, and just being that leader to all of these kids, your kids included, every single game day. So the confidence, have the energy, and I can tell you it's going to be fantastic.
I love that. Okay. So through this process, as we start to coach games, a lot of our program is based on geek kids playing games. And when I teach in US soccer formats, the beginning phases for coaches, coaching games is one of the main tasks. And how that is defined, Dan, since you've been very helpful, would you mind just kind of reading that there for us? Ask to unmute.
There we go. Thank
There
you.
we go. Good man.
I was taking notes while this is going on, so you kind of caught me, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Create an environment in which supports and guides players towards giving their best contribution to the game in order to further develop and score more goals than the opponent.
And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that when we talk about the structure of the game today, that everyone starts to think more through, like, hey, what does soccer look like? What is the structure of the game? And how can I help my team try to score more goals than the opponent? Okay. And so we'll dive into that a little bit. Today, we'll talk about the structure of the game. We'll do some basics. We'll get into some things called set pieces or restarts and talk about some terminology. Krista will be hopefully fully present for the rules of the game, and we can talk through some of those details. We don't have our referee experts here. And then I have had some requests on, hey, how do I manage my players and what that looks like? So I'll share with you some of the ideas that I've gotten through US Soccer and some of the courses I took years ago, and then some of the courses that I teach. So those are important pieces. And then, I also had somebody come to me and talk about this. I thought it was very enlightening. And this coach came to me and said, being somewhat vulnerable, said, "Hey, I had a situation last year where the opponent had a player that was pretty physical. And to be honest, it was almost like it was almost outside it was outside the boundaries of what's kind of like fair. And it was pretty obvious. And as I kind of worked through the game as a coach, I was trying to figure out, how do I help my players? At the same point in time, I'm dealing with a referee that's 12 years old, dealing with second graders. And so I'm trying to help the referee. But during that time, I don't think I did a very good job because I let it build up, and and I wish I would have handled it differently. And so some of those things are bound to happen. And unfortunately, once a year, Chris and I deal with these types of situations, and hopefully we can try to identify what those triggers might look like for us and how we can avoid those situations and kind of end up on the other side emotionally calm. And so I think that's an important piece to talk through. And then I have some QR codes for everybody. And, and again, we can talk with pre-K coaches and people that have specific questions if we want to stay after. I'm here to do that. So, okay. So, if you guys don't mind, just quickly to try to get you engaged and dive into this, for me, I believe that every kid deserves a positive and rewarding and also developmental youth sport experience. And youth sports have changed. And I'm not saying they've changed for the worse. I'm just saying that they're changing along with our world. So, during this process, um, I would want to know a little bit more about what you believe. And so this is kind of like the beginning of why you're coaching, or why you're involved in making a difference in our community. So if some people or everyone wouldn't mind just chatting or writing down, if you don't want to share, what do you believe about the kids that are playing soccer for you and Edina? And Krista, if you don't mind sharing some of those that pop up, that'd be great.
Sure. We have teaching respect. Best effort every time, supporting self-esteem. Give all kids a chance to experience competitive challenge and teamwork. Encourage teammates. Important for pre-K is for them to have this be something to look forward to. That will be the foundation for the rest. The idea that everyone feels part of the team, having fun with the kids, laughing, celebrating, gaining skills, having fun while learning, making new friends. Have fun, learn to play as a team. I love this one. Learn good sportsmanship. Gaining skills, meeting new friends, common theme. I want them looking forward to coming back next week. Fun first, then skills that are transferable to other sports and all aspects of life. Like you can accomplish more as a team than as an individual.
And so I love this because if one very influential coach said to me at the beginning of my kind of pathway, he said, "Don't be a player's last coach." And I was like, whoa, that seems kind of negative. And but I'm always aware of when kids are saying things like, "Oh, how much time do I have left?" or "Do I have to go today?" And my goal is always to have kids at the end say, "What do you mean we're done? It's already over?" And if you can do that and create that environment where kids are surprised how time flies, then we're in good hands. So that's a great way to look at it. Can you all see this screen, Krista? Why?
Why you are ESA's MVPs.
Perfect. Okay. So when I work with clubs, my first focus is always the coach, because the coach is the player that has the most influence on the player's experience. Even though my goal is to provide the best player experience, the player experience is determined by the leader that determines that environment, and that is the coach, which is you. And so this is why I look at coaches, you as the MVPs of the program. So I just wanted to kind of share that. Okay, so elements of the game. Anybody want to read this for me? I'm just going to pick somebody. I know that Kristen is always nice and open to diving in on these things. Kristen, would you read this for
Sure.
me?
The ball, the teammates, the opponent, open spaces, and the goals.
So one thing that's difficult for coaches is kind of reining in your communication. So when you're coaching in a game, if you can refer to these 5 things, then you're in a good place. Give you an example. When I'm coaching on the sidelines, I use a lot of questions. So if a player might be unfocused because the ball's farther away, I might say something along the lines of, "Where's the ball?" And then that would get them looking. I also don't like to coach players that have the ball, because when players have the ball, they're kind of trying to process cognitively what to do. And most of the time, if you've ever played soccer before or done something that you're a beginner at, it's hard to kind of process how to do this stuff. And so telling them what to do when they have the ball isn't as effective as a player that's away from the ball asking them, "Hey, where's the ball?" Or, "Where are your teammates? How can you help your teammates? Do you see the opponent? Can you look at number 6?" Even if you said something, a very simple question that said, "Hey, Jill, can you please get goal side of number 6 between the goal and the player?" So you're trying to kind of tell her what to do by asking questions. And most of the questions are low ordered questions because they have simple answers. They motivate kids to stay focused. So these are the elements of the game. This is the structure of the game. And so I'd love to show you a video and of all these games across the world, whether that it's the highest level in the national teams or the Premier Leagues, or the lowest level in the backyards or in different countries. The game is always the same. And so what's important when we're teaching is that we understand there's four parts of the game that are always happening. Dan, do you mind just seeing if you can help me with those 4 aspects of the game? Dan Newman.
Sure. Attacking, losing the ball, defending, and winning the ball.
Okay, and so 2 of those are transitional moments. Which are those?
Losing the ball and winning the ball.
Right. And so in the lower levels, because players lack the skill to keep possession of the ball, you often see the ball constantly losing and winning. And so one way to gain an advantage as a coach is to become better in transitional moments. So how would you do that?
Pre-K girls, I don't know.
Yeah, pre-K girls, you don't know. That's a good question. So how do you teach pre-K girls, or how do you speak to them during games or have a game plan to be better with transition? It's a tough one, right?
Good question.
Okay, so I'll give you the answer. Today's game plan, girls, when you win the ball and you steal the ball from the other team, I want you to dribble and escape into the nearest open space. And write that down. When you win the ball and steal the ball from the other team today, I want you to dribble into the nearest open space. That is something you're going to talk about before the game. You're going to talk about at halftime. And then when you see it happen, you're going to celebrate the beauty of such a simple thing. Number 2, girls, today, the second thing, when you lose the ball, if you have the ball and you lose it, somebody takes it away from you, I want you to get that ball back as quickly as possible. Within 5 seconds for sure. Ideally 3 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Get that ball back as soon as you lose it. And so that could be your game plan for the entire day. You are probably going to then talk about that again. And I'll give you an example. When I teach 12-year-olds, I say the same thing. I say it a little differently. I say it every game. It's a focus in every halftime. It's a focus in every practice. It's a focus in every activity. It is a habit. And so those are ways to kind of get ahead of the curve from a transitional standpoint. So then the question would be is, what do you do with your kindergarten boys when they have the ball? What should the focus be? And what are you going to say? And what are you going to say to your 4th grade girls or 3rd grade girls when they don't have the ball and you're defending? So what are some common things you could say?
If they
Okay.
have the ball, tell them to dribble towards the goal and shoot at their
Okay,
earliest
so
opportunity.
yeah.
I don't know.
So when we have the ball, that's a great answer. We're trying to move the ball where? Forward.
Towards the goal.
Yep.
Forward.
Let's move the ball forward. How can you move the ball forward? 2 ways to do it. What are they?
Dribble or pass.
Dribble or pass. That's it. Can you dribble? Can you pass? Okay. And so dribble or pass, move the ball forward. Okay. Now you lose the ball. You try to get it back right away. That's transition. The other team has the ball. Now, what are we first and foremost trying to do? We're trying to stop what? What do we want to stop from going forward?
A dribble or a pass.
Yeah, we're trying to stop the dribble or the pass. So what is that thing that we're trying to stop in the elements? Is it the goals? Is it the spaces? Is it the teammates? What are we trying to stop from going forward?
The ball.
The ball. Okay, and it sounds simple, but you have professional coaches that get so far into the weeds, they don't talk about these things. Stop the ball. Stop the ball. Get the ball. Stop the ball. Stop the ball from going forward. Now, the ball is going forward, is getting closer towards your own goal. Parents are getting nervous. What are we going to do? Oh my gosh. God, people are screaming. Now, what do we need to protect? Think about the 5 things here. What are the 5 things? What do we need to protect?
The goal.
The goal. So what do you yell when you want them to protect the goal?
Protect the goal.
Protect the goal. Okay, and so we've just created in 5 minutes a whole season's worth of simple vocabulary. Okay? When we have the ball, try to move the ball forward. Dribble or pass, your choice. Okay? Where do we want to dribble or pass to when we're moving forward? What are the 5 elements? Which one did you choose here? Where do you want to dribble or pass to when moving forward?
Open spaces.
Open spaces. Boom. Now you ever have a conversation with kids, you kind of break down and go back to the elements. Okay, guys, what are we talking about here? Is it us, the teammates, that the problem? Is it the other team? Well, there's a girl on the other team and she pushes. Okay. Okay. So we got to figure out how to deal with the opponent. How are we going to do that? Well, we can push her back. Okay. Well, let's go back to the rules. How can we, if she's pretty physical and she's pretty good, how can we stop her from getting to our goal? Well, we could gang up on her. Okay, maybe we could double team her. Maybe we could get more players. Where do you not want her to get to? Where's the one place you don't want her to get to? Well, the goal, dummy. Okay, so okay. We don't want her to get to the goal. So where do we want? We want to keep the ball away from where? Where do you not want to get beat? Well, the middle. Okay, let's keep the ball out of the middle. Let's keep it out wide. So you've created a common theme of communication based on the structure and the elements of the game. Do you have any questions, Riley?
I do not.
Is there anything here that could be, what am I missing here? Are there more thoughts or questions on this?
I guess one thing I've wondered about, I'm going to do pre-K girls and first grade boys, is trying to not have everyone just right around the ball, which I think is what's probably going to happen. And how
Right.
do you talk about the other roles they can be playing?
That's a great question. I love that question. It's kind of like, have you ever heard of that, like that phrase that says, whatever you resist will persist? Or
No,
something,
but I like that.
something along those lines that, you really want them to spread out and pass it around. Well, as you get down a little bit later here in 5 or 10 minutes, we'll be talking about who are these kids? What are they going through? What can they comprehend? How do they view their world? And that will maybe increase our empathy and awareness to understand that if you went anywhere in the world, any country, any state, any place, and watched, did you say pre-K and first grade?
Yep,
Boys were first graders, pre-K were.
correct.
If you watched first grade boys, and well, let's go to pre-K girls. They're all gonna be in a bumblebee hive. You can't stop that. What you can celebrate is that they're all going for it and they're going for the ball and they're starting to understand and think that the ball is part of the game and it's important. That's a celebration. So if your beehive is legit beehive and it's working, it's good. Does that make sense?
Yep,
First grade boys, you're starting to get to a place where, how old are these kids now? 7?
yeah, 6 to 7, some maybe 8.
6, 7-year-olds are starting to understand what the other guy looks like and what my friends are and how to have teammates and maybe I'm going to pass to that guy. So as you get to first grade, you're still going to have that, but you may be able to start to talk about the elements of shape. And the shape is that diamond that you want, where you have that back player and that wide player, and you still want that diamond to move side to side, forward, together, like a beehive. It's just a little bit more of a structured beehive. Does that make sense? So you don't have the right-sided player running all the way across to the left side. And so that's something where we can maybe focus on for first grade boys is, hey, we're in the diamond shape, guys. I saw the right-sided player that was closest to us over there running to the other side. Now that's okay as long as you're not on the other side of the left player. So we need to kind of keep that diamond together. How are we going to do that? So I like where you're going with this. You are going to see a drastic difference, and maybe with your first grade boys, you'll start to see some of the beehive shape taking place, but the pre-K girls, you will not. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep.
So you're not doing anything wrong by if you see that. And you
Sounds
don't have
good.
to bang your head into the wall about it. Are there any other questions on this?
I wrote it in the chat. So as a pre-K coach, should I even focus on passing? I mean, you gave me some good tips here to focus on. Is it just a waste of time to try to focus on that?
To focus on what? What was the question?
Yeah, sorry. So like passing, shape, like spreading out, all that stuff. Should I instead focus on kind of the other stuff we talked about?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Don't worry about passing and shape when they are thinking about me. Me. I am the person here, coach. Me. I'm gonna go get the ball. And don't tell me what to do. I'm going to go for the ball. And if you tell me to go for the ball, I'm going to be like, yeah. If you say to me, how can you help your teammate? That might be something that could consider. Or if you say to me, where's the goal? Or can you move the ball forward? Or that whole transition idea, when you win the ball, can you dribble into space? But if I was coaching pre-K, I would be celebrating dribbling. And if any of you have moments, and I'm hoping that in the future that pre-K becomes a 3-on-3 game instead of a 4-on-4 game. But if you ever have moments where you have less kids and the other team has less kids because for whatever reason there's graduation or something and you have 12 or less kids, I would encourage you to not go play 5-on-5 on one field to add another player, but to talk about, hey, if we have less players, we don't have enough, still keep the games going and maybe play 3-on-3. I mean, 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 is a brilliant game because there's no diffusion of responsibility and everybody has to figure it out. And so the smaller the game, the better, the more dribbling, the better.
Sorry, I have a quick question. Why can't we be 3-on-3 for pre-K girl or pre-K kids?
Well, US soccer has, it has their model. We can do whatever we want. We can do it. Other countries have their models and so we can do whatever we want as an organization. For us at Edina, and Krista can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that our focus right now is trying to put kids together in school teams and because we have so many kids and so many, we're trying to keep it the way it always has been, which is 4v4. I'm just observing that I think it could be 3-on-3 in the future. That would have drastic impact on rosters going down 75%, which would also mean more field space, which would also mean more logistics with the city, and things like that, and possibly some kids in school settings being split apart. Krista, am I off there or?
Yeah, no, you hit all points perfectly.
So anyways, we may be able to try something in the fall and we'll see how it goes, but these are big. One player on the field can be a big decision for a program. So we just have to keep thinking through it and making sure that we're not just doing it just to do it. But I appreciate the question.
For fourth grade boys, I had a question. I think it still happens where it's a lot of me, and not necessarily seeing a teammate.
Right.
But really good at seeing the opponent, especially when the opponent possesses the ball. What are some suggestions you have to help get out of that me space?
Do you guys have practices?
I don't know, not yet.
I mean, if you could run a team practice,
Yep.
I could send you a fourth grade kind of like practice activities, like for a full season. It might be a little overload, but you could kind of pick and choose through it and call me and say, well, what is this all about? And we could figure it out. But I think practicing would be helpful. I also think it sounds like what you're telling me is that they're very individualistic and they dribble a lot, but they don't pass very much. And
That's
so,
been my experience in the past, and doing coaching at a similar age group. So,
yeah. And so
Yeah.
how do we get them to pass?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
what ideas might you have besides practicing passing and playing keep away games and training? If you don't do that and you show up for game day, how are you going to get them to pass?
Right. So, yeah. And the other thing is like keeping to lanes, the
Right.
inside, outside, to create that space and see
Right.
where your teammate is.
And
Right.
so what I would say, I think you're onto something. I would say is if you have that diamond shape or that 2-3-1 shape, and there are triangles all over the field, that shape should move. So the right-sided player sometimes will be in the middle, but they're not going to be on the other side of the left-sided player. So they move together as the ball moves, and spacing is important. So understanding angles, get the ball, find the nearest teammate. And so what I would just say to them is this, like the pre-K girls, I said, when you win the ball, I would say it a little differently. I would say, hey guys, when we win the ball, the first thing I want you to do is connect the first pass.
Mhm.
Okay. Every time you go steal the ball, I want to see how quickly you can connect the first pass. And I would have somebody keep track. You guys won the ball 24 times in the first half. You connected a pass 3 times.
Got
What
it.
do you think? What do you think you could do in the second half? And they might say 20. And I'd say, okay, well, let's go backwards. You had 3. You think you can get 20. Let's cut it in the middle. Can you get 12? Can you win the ball and connect the pass 12 times? What are you guys going to commit to? You tell me. And they're going to say, oh, we're going to commit to doing 15. Okay, let's see how it goes. And you go out there and get them focused on that one thing. And that one thing is it's on that transitional moment. When you win, when this happens, do this because of this. And the because of this is important. When you win the ball, try to connect the first pass so that we can escape the defenders and move the ball forward to score.
Mm.
Or when we have the ball, spread out so that we can find a pass and move the ball forward. When we have the ball, spread out
Mhm.
so that we can find the highest pass where we can keep the ball and move the ball forward. Something along those lines, right?
I like
But
that
you
key.
have to be consistent. You can't just, that's going to be your theme all year.
Mm.
And it's okay if your theme is simple and you say the same things over and over again.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions on technical coaching points? Okay, we're going to move through it. Restarts and set pieces. I'm not so sure. Anybody here that's played soccer want to share with everyone what is a restart? Anyone that's played soccer, jump out there and make yourself vulnerable. What is a restart?
After a dead ball situation, like out of bounds or a foul or something.
Yep. Anytime the ball is stopped, which is not very often in soccer. So those situations create problems for teams that are not fluent with soccer and do it every day. So the biggest problem I see is goal kicks. How do we set up a goal kick, put it down in the middle, spread everybody out, and play the ball out to a player that's open without having the other team steal the ball and shove it down our face? How do we throw the ball in and keep our feet down? When we have a corner kick, how do we make a quick pass and then try to score, or do we try to kick it all the way in? Well, maybe I can't kick it that far. So how can somebody go help and we can create a quick quick pass and do it fast to catch the other team off guard. Kickoffs. Boom. No, that's football, American football. Soccer is add somebody in the circle, pass to them, a nice short pass, and then figure out how to dribble or pass the ball, move the ball forward. So these are restarts and set pieces. Krista, do you want to kind of, is there anything how do we want to share this group rules at a glance? Now you've sent this out to everybody, correct?
So this is what it looks like. And there was a copy of it in every team bag. And kind of just a couple keys to this are number one. So Bill Garner, he actually is starting the referee training tonight. His phone number and email is on here for any feedback. So this is really, you know, second grade and above, use referees. If you have any positive feedback, any constructive feedback, feel free to reach out to Bill and of course myself. So I wanted to point that out. And otherwise, you know, I think too, Bob Nelson, I think, had a good question in the chat about having 15 players on a first grade boys team. So pre-K, K, first grade, all have anywhere from 12 to 16 players. The good news is the game is played 4v4 on 2 separate fields. So the team is split in half. The instructors at the field manage that transition. They say, all right, it's time for the game. Take your crew, split them in half. They're basically fields that are side by side. So one is, let's say, field 3, the other crew, field 4. There's an instructor, that's the referee, and the team plays 4v4 based on having 4, 5, 6, 7, in the worst scenario, 8 that are on each field that get rotated on and off the field while the instructor manages the game. You're teaching soccer, the instructor is teaching soccer. It's a joint effort at that time for that age group. So I wanted to just make sure that was clear, to not be too worried about the size of the roster because there are 2 fields that are used. Other than that, I think the rules are pretty straightforward for 2nd through 4th grade at Yancey. No offsides. Offsides begins in 5th grade with the 5th and 6th grade combined league. And then all the way up, what size balls are used. Size 4 is used up through 6th grade. Size 5 is used 7th and older. The other side of it, if you want to click through to the next slide, Jonathan, is general rules. So for the heading, handballs, jury, all of that, I won't go through that line by line just for time purposes, but just take a look at that. Our instructors, our referees are all trained on this. So the best case scenario is we have everyone following the same rules and understanding the same types of calls that are made at each level. So just be sure to understand this card. If anyone feels it's important, we can even do another Zoom of just 100% rules to make sure that everything is clear and that, you know, everyone feels ready to go come May 13th. I will read this. This is a good question by Dan. I have 16. I'm the only coach. I recruited a co-coach of the week. I love that, right? Get everyone involved from my parents, and they were super responsive to watch over the second field. That's fantastic. That's exactly what we would encourage to have happen. I love that you're spreading it out, a coach of the week, get every parent involved. Maybe that will get them to raise their hand, you know, next season, which is this fall, or next summer, if they just get a little taste of it, and the adrenaline starts to flow and they're having some fun and have, you know, great feedback from the players that, you know, they love having you there on the field, sideline. So that's exactly what we would encourage you to do. So I love that you've taken the initiative. Any tips on recruiting coach helpers? So there is, we have kind of an email template we can encourage that can be sent out. We find humor works well, like, you know, let's get some volunteers before we have to create a chart and assign a certain week, you know, so that helps. I can also help. So lean on me, Chad, if you want me to send an email out on behalf of the administrator saying, hey, we have a gap and we need some help here. Can we get a couple people to raise their hands? There might even be somebody I'm familiar with on the roster, or the age director, which is a board member, that can reach out directly and say, hey, Chad needs some help. Do you think you can jump in and help here? So there are many ways we can support you with that. Google Docs, yes, works great. I see someone is suggesting here, Google Docs had people sign in. Yeah. Yeah. Created Google Doc, that's perfect.
You got a lot of smart people figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Smarter than us, right, Jonathan?
For sure.
Google Doc, common theme, Google Doc. Yeah, with the snacks too. Yeah.
That's a good question. So should we be bringing snacks weekly?
So the whole snack thing became like, we shut down the snack thing about 10 years ago when we were using turf. So when we were using the multi-purpose field for the pre-KK first, which is up by Coleman by the water tower, and we were using Pamela turf, and it was like, there can't be food on the turf. Like, it was just protect the turf. So that's where the rules started. You'll see in all of our communication, we don't say one way or the other. We don't want to encourage it if it becomes a, distractor. But we won't shut it down. All we ask is that when the game is over, just move the snack distribution to open green space so the next teams can come and use the field space. Because I know there's coolers, I've seen it, coolers and all kinds of, it's like this, takeover of the field. And so we just say, okay, everybody, just make your way over there, have your snack. I know kids love it. So completely up to you. We don't discourage it anymore since we're not on turf.
Yeah, Ryan, why don't we just, if you want to just text me if you want that information, maybe what I'll do is I'll send out a link for the kind of like a 10U 9-10, probably could use for 9-10, 9 through 12-year-olds. Be kind of it's a little more advanced practice plan, but you can look through some of that stuff. So I'll send you that. We're gonna dive into a little bit of who are these kids that we are coaching. And one of my favorite resources is the best license I ever took was the National Youth License. And the National Youth License was through US Youth Soccer, and it was backed by a lot of educational grounding. And so some of the things to think about is if you are coaching pre-K and K, you have a U6 age group. Todd, what age are you coaching?
Pre-K boys.
Would you mind reading some of the characteristics of these kids? And then maybe would you mind just reading some of these? Can you see them?
Yes, catching skills not yet developed, constantly in motion, love to run, jump, roll, and climb. Eye hand and eye foot coordination is raw, not ready for bouncing or flighted balls. No sense of pace, go flat out. Physical coordination is immature, can balance on dominant foot. Controlling the ball is a complex task. Prefer large softballs and foam balls. Only understand simple rules. Individually oriented, me, my, mine. Little or no concern for team activities. Believes in Santa Claus, but will not discuss with peers. Lofty imagination. Physical and psychological development of boys and girls are quite similar. Physical or psychologically easily bruised, need generous praise. How's it going? Short attention span, tends to one task at a time. Limited understanding of time and space.
So, and then we probably didn't take into consideration this one. Physically, they're top heavy. What does that mean?
All over easy.
What's that?
All over easy.
Yeah, they fall over easy, right? Their heads weigh more, their brains are
Yeah.
developing, and they fall over. They're not coordinated. So, Todd, when you look at like these things, I spent a week in a course learning about this, and I was like 28 years old. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna take these 5-year-olds and whip them into shape, and little did I have any clue what a 5-year-old is going through. And so, being a parent, you're so far ahead of the game. But now that you kind of reread some of these things, they make you smile and laugh, and they're so true. How are you going to coach your team now? What does this tell you about how you might want to coach your team?
I say lower your expectations.
I think lowering your expectations is a good answer,
To the
right?
points earlier, to make sure they're having fun first and foremost. They don't want to be back again.
I love it.
I did this. My 4-year-old, I'm teaching him how to golf too at the same time. Like,
Mhm.
it's just so easy. Like that sport is frustrating in just general terms. Like even as an adult, I'm frustrated by that sport. But so I just let him just go whack the ball. Just go whack it.
Yeah.
Have fun, figure it out, give him little pointers here and there.
Yes.
But most and foremost is he having a good time? Does he enjoy going to the driving range with dad? Like as long as he wants to go back the next day, I've done my job.
Love it. So good. I'm so glad I called on you. So individually oriented, what does that tell you for people that want to like develop this team game at pre-K?
That you can teach them how to pass, but don't expect it during the game time.
Yeah. And they only understand simple rules. So how about you talking about team shape? How's that going to work?
It's not.
So it's messy and it's a
Yeah.
beehive, and they don't really I mean, I love the way you put it. So then I'm going to go into the next one.
I had a quick question on that. How at what age do we know the dominant foot?
Great question.
I still struggle with it.
Yeah, it's a great question. Does anybody have insight on that? 6, maybe? That might be I've been stumped.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 maybe. So here's kind of a typical session from USU soccer, which is free play, which is you're going to see our kids start with 2v2 free play. Okay. And then there'll be some game-like activities, which are mostly like body awareness, which is, can you jump on one foot? Can you balance? Can you move over here? Can you play tag? Can you get through the maze? And you like to have every kid with the ball, and then you end up with 3v3. And so this is just fluency of getting involved and playing. So that's what that looks like. Another thought is, anybody here coach second graders or first graders?
Yep.
Okay, you want to volunteer and tell me what these kids, what is a characteristic of a U8, which is probably first and second grade?
Sure. They like to show skills, but they need approval. They're beginning to develop some physical confidence. Most can ride a bicycle. They lack a sense of pace. They go flat out, chasing the ball until they drop. Still in motion, twitching, jerking, scratching, and blinking are all second nature physical movements. They're still into running, jumping, climbing, and rolling. Boys and girls are still quite similar in physical, psychological development. Attention span is a bit longer than the U6 age group. They're developing playmates. They're more into imitation of the big guys, sports heroes becoming important. Still very sensitive. They dislike personal failure in front of peers, making ridicule from the coach in front of the group very destructive. They still do not believe in the intensity of the team at all costs, and inclined more toward small group activities.
So now what? How are we going to coach them?
I mean, I go back to kind of what you said before, in terms of, with them, I'm thinking from my daughter's team, second grade girls. I really like the idea of when you get the ball, dribble into an open space or connect a pass. And
Yeah.
just, again, focus. So pick one thing, one skill, one, part, probably a transitional part of the game, and just focus on that, probably for the season, right? And, keep track of it, get better, and then just talk about it, during halftime, before the game, at halftime, and then after the game about how well they did. But, to me, it's just they're just starting their journey and really trying to understand what this is. So, help them through those transitional periods of the game, which is a little bit more complex than before. But, again, just keeping it simple and focusing on that
Yeah.
element.
So true. And the kids, they want to be loved. They still need approval. And what are you going to do with the second grade boy who's completely out of line because you're trying to talk and he cannot listen? He's completely out of line, but he's also sensitive. How do you kind of bring them in and say, hey, this is where we're at. I need you to focus, Jimmy. And by the way, you got about 20 seconds. So gone. It's something else. And these ages, I think Todd's got it right. It's just getting them out there, having a good time, not getting too into the weeds here and not making a bunch of corrections and not making them feel like they're doing something wrong and just kind of focusing on having a good time. These players can recognize they do have teammates. They're not just me. They're like me and maybe a friend. That's what we call it at this age. So these are some things to think through. Okay. So, third, fourth graders. Anybody coach third, fourth graders? Want to do this real quick? I can include this link in the chat. That's what we'll do. You guys can, it's only 74 pages. You guys can read through it. Okay. All right. So that is some ideas on who are we coaching and how are we gonna do that? Okay.
Jonathan, just a time check. We're right at the 1 o'clock mark.
Okay, so player management, slanted lines. A lot of you are going to have teams that are at this level. Some kids are here, some kids are here, and they're all over the place. How do you manage that process? Be cognizant of how you put your lineups together, how kids are doing, and allowing kids at the bottom level that don't get to touch the ball. How can you get them to touch the ball? How can you get your superstars to thrive and the middle kids to be a part of this team? So just think about all this process, what is the sideline and how do you manage that? There's some really good ideas here with coaches. What does your lineup look like to kind of like blend these kids from different levels and don't stand in lines? And so don't get your kids, kids don't want to stand in lines. They want to play. Okay. So we've talked about heat of the moment. We'll get through with that. Here's some QR codes. So if anybody wants any of the skill games, which are, again, these are like pre-K through, I would say, I mean, I have fun doing it as an adult, but I like chasing a ball. So, but pre-K through fourth grade, third grade, these are fun games, camp games, a lot of players with one player, one ball. This is a QR code for you to kind of get that. we can send this out as well. So
Mhm.
here's a kind of a pre-K first grade curriculum. So this is kind of a page that I share with mainly with the trainers. And so they can follow specific timelines and games, and we update the different games each week, a different skill game each week. Otherwise, we keep things consistent. And again, I can share this on the coach. This is the second and third grade curriculum. And so these are just some ways, and maybe I'll share these on our coach chat. And so this might be the best one, which is this coach community group is a WhatsApp group. And we can kind of repopulate that, and we just have some communication there. And Krista, if you can jump on this as well, because sometimes people chime in on, hey, what are we doing with weather, and cancellations? And this is just another way for us to kind of get it out there to people.
Sure.
So it'd be good for you to be in this group because you're kind of the engineer, and we like engineers because they have information. So, okay, so we know this connection, enjoyment, learning. Krista, you talked a little bit about stuff in the beginning. Is there anything you want to finish with?
I talked about the instructors at the field for pre-K first or pre-KK first grade site supervisors, second grade and older, referee training. If you're pre-KK coach, we will bring your bag of soccer balls, one per player, to the field at the first game. So it'll be at the field, enough for everyone on your roster, including any changes that we've made to the rosters. And then I would suggest ask a parent to help hand those out. Hopefully the kids put their names on the balls because there will be 1,000 of them floating around the community very soon. But that's a gift from ESA to that age group. And then the fields all have equipment, first aid kits, field signs, pennies, extra balls. So we have containers locked up and all kinds of extra equipment there. So, and if there's anything as a coach you need, if you want some pennies, if you want a couple balls, just, send me an email and we'll pull together what we can and support you in that request.
For the late additions to our team that we didn't get the uniforms for over the weekend, how are they getting their uniforms again? Can you remind me?
Sure. So if it was a late registrant, which, we've just been monitoring, like, what does space look like? And, then we say, yes, okay, you can register. Those we do locally, and they'll be at a pickup spot that I email out to the family that's registering, so they can come by and pick it up anytime. It's outside. And that's the direction we give in the email to them.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So coaches, you guys are busy enough. We don't want you to have to be responsible to come and get it. The family registered late, so part of their process is they need to come pick their uniform up.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
There's a question. Any tips for the players that are either too aggressive or get very discouraged and they don't want to play?
This kind of reminds me of the slanted line, right? You have kids that are at the level that are aggressive and they're always around the ball, and you don't want to take that away from them. So you want to let them be themselves. And I guess, there's words like aggressive, which means intent to harm. And then there's words like assertive, which is a positive spin on aggressive, which is, hey, don't be afraid to be a part of the play and get in there and go for it. And then there's kind of the opposite, which is like my daughter that doesn't really want to be in there and doesn't really want to be anywhere near the ball. And it's really hard for her, and If I can just say to, her today, like, what, I want you just to try to go in there and touch that ball today. 5 times. Don't be afraid. I'm going to put you in there because I believe in you. And so that's a coaching opportunity. And for the, and for the aggressive kid, you don't want to take away unless and if there's intent to harm, then we have to teach the rules. So good question.
Mhm. I know, I mean, I can say last year, first grade boys, we seem to kind of have a common theme developing, getting more escalated throughout the season about aggressive play. And we have Will Swanda as our lead for the first grade group again this year. So he's got a team of really strong instructors. And that will be from day one, a common reminder to the players. But we also, I think last year, kind of forced us into really having some good tips for the instructors to use relating to pull, the player off the field, have a conversation with them. Just some other finesse kind of tips that they started using that were effective. So we're like day one, we're jumping out of the gate with this arsenal of tools, and our instructors will be ready. So we want to minimize anything that starts to develop, and it can start with one kid and then they can convince a few other kids to do it, and then all of a sudden it's like I get an email about how bad one team was to the other team in terms of attitude, behavior, the handshake, all of that. So if we can just get ahead of it, on top of it from the start, it's going to make for more success.
Yeah. And the question here on how do I deal with third graders jumping right into game one? The first thing is choose the formation. Do you want the blue formation or the red formation? The 3-3. What words are you going to use to describe this? So you have like the back line, the middle line, you have the central players, and you have the outside players. So you have the right back and the left back. So now you have your vocabulary. Try to figure out which players are going to go in what positions quickly before the game. And I would keep them in the similar positions and rotate them back into that same position for that game. And then the next game, you could try something different. And every time you try something different, you're not rotating them completely randomly like volleyball, because one of your jobs as a coach is to help them be successful. So, as they get to third, fourth grade, some kids, like if my daughter played center back, my team would have problems, and so that doesn't mean I don't want to try her there at some point, but I can't put her in the deep end right away. We need to find ways to put kids in successful places to be successful. So you do want to kind of rotate kids throughout the season, but I wouldn't necessarily do it randomly and just throw kids anywhere. You want to kind of develop some cohesion, and that's the job as a coach. That's what a lineup does. And so, does that make sense, Ryan? Yeah. Okay. So, that just makes that's how I would do it. And when they jump in, I would have a specific game plan, like you said, which we talked about today, is based on the 5 elements. Today, our goal is to focus on that ball. Okay. Get that ball and move that ball forward. When we lose it, I want you to get it back within 5 seconds. That's it. Next time you say, okay, when you win the ball, let's see if you guys can connect a pass. And so you're adding a couple elements, one element a game, but you're just keeping it real simple. That's what I would do. Organize before the game, organize and prepare, connect with your players as they arrive, communicate your team objectives. Halftime, go back to the team objectives, get your players' feedback, boom. And here's some pro tips just on game day. Consistent message. Here's our objective. All this stuff can be shared. Okay. I can, if anyone wants to talk, I'd rather talk the rest of the way, but Krista, we can probably end this. I'm definitely open to staying after. I know you have a lot to do, so I can stay if anyone wants some special questions or want to have a chat. Other than that, Krista, would you say that we're probably out of time?
Yeah, I think we just really are appreciative to the time that you spent hopping on. There's certainly so much more we can cover. And I think Jonathan and I will talk, share my notes I've taken from the chat, and see if it makes sense to have another one of these prior to the 13th. But we've shared our emails, cell phones, so any one-on-one you want us to engage in, we are open to that. And we can also do an on the field type of meeting as well, just to make sure you feel fully prepared and ready for the start of the season.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, as we kind of put a bow on this, we have to remember, there's the structure of the game of soccer that we need to kind of think about. And those are fixed elements, the ball, the goal, attacking, defending, that happens in every game. And then there's the unfixed elements, which is, who are my players? What age are they? What's going on with them cognitively, socially, emotionally, and how do I have that empathy to really understand what they need to help them kind of come together as a group and perform. And it sounds a little bit over the top, but that's coaching, and coaching matters, and coaching matters for kids, and you are all role models for those kids. So we really appreciate the environment that you create to have an impact on the kids. So for me, it's just a kind of a thank you.